And over here, Pencher Monument. Some of the ridges that wrap around the hill, possibly associated with the idea of the worm lapping itself around the hill here.
Wisht lads had your gobs, I'll tell yous all an awful story. Wisht lads had your gobs, and I'll tell you about the worm. Hello, I'm David Simpson and I'm a historian based in the northeast of England. I've been interested in the history of the region since I was about 8 years old, fascinated by the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons and the railway history of the time, and also place names, legends, dialect, all these kind of things. This particular map, or series of maps, shows the northeast of England at the time of the Civil War. This first one here shows you the preliminary period leading up to the war, in which the Scots took virtual control of the northeast of England. I run two websites, England's Northeast, which is englandsnortheast.co.uk, and that focuses on the region's history, its battles, the stories, the legends. And I also run a website called Tangled Worm, tangledworm.com, in which I publish maps featuring the history of the region and regionally focused gifts. And the inspiration for the name Tangled Worm comes from the worm legends of the northeast of England. This map here features three of the main worm legends of the northeast: the Laidley Worm, and then the Lambton Worm, and the Sockburn Worm, and the link to Lewis Carroll and the Jabberwocky poem. The Lambton Worm story concerns a young lad called John Lambton from a very famous local family who went fishing in the River Wear on a Sunday morning when he should have been at church. And he spent the whole morning fishing. He didn't catch anything of any use. But the only little thing he caught at the end of the morning was a tiny little creature, like a worm-like creature, and he thought, that's it. And he threw it down a nearby well, and he completely forgot about this. Years later, he went to fight abroad in the Middle East, and in the meantime, this little creature had grown into this ferocious beast, this wyvern, this worm that terrorized the local neighborhood.
Here we are at Worm Hill, which you can see just behind me here. Now that's a natural feature, it's a glacial moraine, and just behind it was the site of the well where Lambton threw the little creature that he caught in the River Wear down the well.
Most people are familiar with the Lambton Worm song, which dates to 1867. It was written by C.M. Lumain, but it's based on the much earlier legend, and that was first performed at Newcastle's Tyne Theatre in 1867. And the lyrics and the chorus of the song feature lots of local dialect words. One Sunday morning, Lambton went a-fishing in the weir, and caught a fish upon his hook he thought looked very queer. But whatten kind of fish it was, young Lambton couldn't tell. He wouldn't fash to carry it home, so he hid it down a well. Wisht lads had your gobs, I'll tell yous all an awful story. Wisht lads had your gobs, and I'll tell you about the worm.
And over here, Pencher Monument, which is also associated with the worm legend in the famous music hall song.
This fearful worm would often feed on calves and lambs and sheep, and swally little bairns alive when they lay down to sleep. And when he'd eaten all he could and he had had his fill, he crawled away and lapped his tail 7 times round Pencher Hill.
I wonder how many people visiting the Pencher Monument today realise its connection with the famous legend. The Pencher Monument is built on the site of an Iron Age fort, and there are sort of ridges run around the hill which perhaps become associated with the idea of the Lambton Worm wrapping itself around a local hill. Pencher Monument dates from 1844, built in memory of John George Lambton, the first Earl of Durham. He was a coal owner, he was known as Radical Jack, and he's a descendant of John Lambton that reputedly killed the Lambton Worm in the famous Northeast legend.
So know you know who all the folks on both sides of the weir lost lots of sheep and lots of sleep and lived in mortal fear. So let's have one, a brave Sir John that kept the brains free harm, saved coos and calves by making haws of the famous Lambton Worm. No lads, I'll had me gob, that's all I know about the story of Sir John's clever job with the awful Lambton Worm.